Shedeur Sanders told the Baltimore Ravens, "Don't pick me," during the NFL draft because he didn't want to sit behind Lamar Jackson with no chance to play. The Ravens listened, and 3 picks later, Sanders landed in Cleveland, where he got his shot to start. Fast forward 7 months, and the coach Sanders rejected, John Harbaugh, is now the man who could determine whether Sanders even has a future in Cleveland. And Browns owner Jimmy Haslam is sitting in the middle of this explosive situation, holding all the cards, with one decision that will define Shedeur Sanders' career and the entire trajectory of the Cleveland Browns franchise. This isn't just about hiring a coach. This is about power, revenge, destiny, and whether a billionaire owner is willing to sacrifice his 5th-round quarterback to land the biggest coaching prize in the NFL. Before we dive into this absolute powder keg of a situation that's about to explode in Cleveland, smash that subscribe button and turn on notifications because this story has more twists than a Hollywood thriller, and you need to hear every single detail of what's really happening behind closed doors. Let's set the stage for what might be the most awkward, uncomfortable, and potentially career-defining situation in the NFL right now. On one side, you have Shedeur Sanders, a 5th-round rookie quarterback who just finished his first NFL season with the Cleveland Browns. On the other side, you have John Harbaugh, a Super Bowl-winning coach who just got fired after 18 years with the Baltimore Ravens and is now the hottest coaching candidate on the market. And in the middle, you have Jimmy Haslam, the Browns owner, who has to decide whether landing Harbaugh is worth the potential destruction of his young quarterback's confidence and future. Here's why this situation is so explosive. During the 2025 NFL Draft, the Baltimore Ravens were prepared to select Shedeur Sanders with the 141st overall pick in the 5th round. John Harbaugh and his offensive coordinator Todd Monken had scouted Sanders thoroughly. They believed he had no business falling that far. They wanted him as their developmental quarterback behind Lamar Jackson.
But according to ESPN's Adam Schefter, Sanders' camp sent a clear, unmistakable message to Baltimore. Don't pick me. Sanders reportedly didn't want to spend his prime sitting on the bench behind a 2-time MVP with no realistic path to playing time. He wanted to go somewhere that would give him a legitimate opportunity to compete for a starting job. The Ravens pivoted. They passed on Sanders. 3 picks later, the Cleveland Browns traded up in front of the Philadelphia Eagles and selected Shedeur Sanders at pick 144. Sanders got exactly what he wanted, a chance to compete, a pathway to the field, and by the end of his rookie season, he was the starting quarterback of an NFL team. Now, in a twist of fate that feels like it was written by a Hollywood screenwriter, the coach Shedeur Sanders vetoed could become his new boss in Cleveland, and Shedeur's entire future hangs in the balance. Let's talk about Jimmy Haslam, because to understand this situation, you need to understand the man making the decision. Jimmy Haslam bought the Cleveland Browns in 2012, and his tenure as owner has been defined by one thing: chaos. He's hired and fired 5 head coaches in 13 years. He gave Deshaun Watson a fully guaranteed $230 million contract that has crippled the franchise. He's been accused of meddling in personnel decisions, most notably forcing the selection of Johnny Manziel in 2014. And now he's sitting on the most important decision of his ownership tenure. On Monday, January 6, 2026, Haslam fired Kevin Stefanski after 6 seasons as head coach. Stefanski won 2 NFL Coach of the Year awards. He led the Browns to the playoffs multiple times. He developed Shedeur Sanders from a 4th-string developmental player into a starting quarterback. But the Browns finished 3-14 in 2025, and Haslam decided it was time for change. The very next day, John Harbaugh was fired by the Baltimore Ravens, and within 45 minutes of that news breaking, 7 NFL teams reached out to Harbaugh's agent expressing interest. The Cleveland Browns were one of those 7 teams, and according to multiple reports, Haslam has made John Harbaugh his #1 target.
This is where the situation gets complicated. Haslam faces a choice that will define his legacy as an owner. Does he aggressively pursue John Harbaugh, one of the most successful coaches in NFL history, even though hiring Harbaugh could torpedo Shedeur Sanders' career? Or does he prioritize his young quarterback, pass on Harbaugh, and bet on a different coach who might be more invested in developing Sanders?
Let's examine what's at stake for each person involved, starting with Shedeur Sanders. Sanders finished his rookie season starting the final 7 games. He went 3-4 as a starter, throwing for 1,400 yards with 7 touchdowns and 10 interceptions. His numbers weren't spectacular, but he showed flashes of potential. He completed 74% of his passes in college at Colorado. He has elite ball placement when protected. He's poised and confident. But he also struggled with turnovers, took too many sacks, and looked overwhelmed at times against NFL defenses. More importantly, Sanders passed the eye test in his final 2 games. He led the Browns to back-to-back victories over the Pittsburgh Steelers and Cincinnati Bengals to close the season. Those weren't garbage time wins. Those were meaningful performances where Sanders looked like he belonged on an NFL field. He earned respect from teammates, he showed resilience, and he finished the season with momentum. But here's the problem. General Manager Andrew Berry refused to endorse Sanders as the Browns' quarterback of the future. At his end-of-season press conference, Berry said, "We saw a lot of progress with Shedeur this year. He's still very much a work in progress like many rookie quarterbacks are. Now that all being said, we're going to do our work on the quarterback market. It's too important of a position, and it's something that has to be solidified. I can't sit here and tell you today whether the solution for or the starter in 2026 is internal or external." That's not a vote of confidence. That's a GM leaving the door wide open to replacing his 5th-round rookie with someone else. And according to Browns insider Mary Kay Cabot, the team is holding true to their promise to let the next head coach have a say in the starting quarterback, and they are not mandating to any candidates that they must start Shedeur Sanders. Translation: if John Harbaugh becomes the Browns' head coach, Shedeur's starting job is not guaranteed. In fact, it might be gone entirely. Think about what this means from Sanders' perspective. He rejected Baltimore because he didn't want to sit behind Lamar Jackson. He went to Cleveland specifically to get a chance to play. He worked his way from 4th string to starter. He earned the opportunity through performance. And now, the coach he rejected is coming to Cleveland with the power to bench him, cut him, or draft his replacement. This is Shedeur Sanders' worst nightmare scenario. Reports indicate that Harbaugh wanted to draft Sanders as a developmental backup in Baltimore. That was the plan. Sanders as the heir apparent to Lamar Jackson, learning and developing for 2 or 3 years before eventually taking over. But Sanders didn't want that path. He wanted to play immediately. Now, if Harbaugh comes to Cleveland, what's to stop him from viewing Sanders the exact same way he viewed him in Baltimore, as a developmental project who needs years of seasoning before he's ready to lead an NFL offense? And if Harbaugh views Sanders that way, the Browns are sitting with the 6th overall pick in the 2026 NFL Draft. Quarterbacks Fernando Mendoza and Dante Moore are projected to go in the top 2 picks. If the Browns trade up, or if one of those quarterbacks slides, Harbaugh could draft his own guy and relegate Sanders back to the bench.
Sanders himself acknowledged his uncertain future. When asked if he did enough to prove he should be the starter in 2026, Sanders said, "I think I did what I was able to do, and I definitely grew from a lot of things, and I got experience now. So I'm always the same. Confidence-wise, I'm there. But that's not in my hands. That's not my decision. I can't speak on what other people feel." That's a quarterback who knows his job is in jeopardy. Now let's talk about John Harbaugh's perspective. Harbaugh is 63 years old. He just spent 18 years with the Baltimore Ravens. He won a Super Bowl. He's the 14th winningest coach in NFL history. He doesn't need to take just any job. He can be selective. He can wait for the perfect situation. And according to reports, Harbaugh is being very selective. NFL insider Diana Russini revealed that Harbaugh is spending his time watching film specifically on 2 quarterbacks, Jackson Dart of the New York Giants and Cam Ward of the Tennessee Titans. Both are first-round picks from the 2025 draft. Both showed more consistency and promise than Sanders did as rookies. Dart threw for 2,200 yards with 15 touchdowns and 5 interceptions. Ward elevated a below-average supporting cast. Those are the quarterbacks capturing Harbaugh's attention. Shedeur Sanders is not the quarterback Harbaugh is studying. That should tell you everything you need to know about Harbaugh's level of interest in building around Sanders. Multiple reports suggest Harbaugh is leaning toward the New York Giants or potentially staying out of the AFC North entirely to avoid the awkwardness of coaching against Baltimore twice a year. The Browns are considered a long shot for Harbaugh, not just because of Sanders, but because Cleveland is frankly a mess. They have an $80 million cap hit for Deshaun Watson in 2026. They have holes all over the offensive roster. They don't have a franchise quarterback. They're rebuilding. Prominent Cleveland journalist Terry Pluto summed it up perfectly. He said, Harbaugh, when you're 63, and I could speak to this, when you start to get older and you realize, time is against you, the moves you make, the things you do, you don't have a lot of time to zigzag. You want to go to the right destination. And why in heaven's name would John Harbaugh come to Cleveland? That's a fair question. Why would a Super Bowl winning coach with his pick of jobs choose the Browns when they don't even have a clear answer at quarterback?
But here's where Jimmy Haslam enters the equation. Haslam has admired John Harbaugh for years. Harbaugh dominated the Browns during his tenure in Baltimore, going 27-8 against Cleveland. Haslam watched Harbaugh win 6 AFC North titles. He watched Harbaugh build a culture of toughness and discipline. And now, Haslam has a chance to steal the coach who tormented his franchise for nearly 2 decades and turn him into an ally. According to ESPN Cleveland's Tony Grossi, Haslam is prepared to offer Harbaugh a massive contract. Reports suggest $20 million per year with a $10 million budget for assistant coaches. That would make Harbaugh one of the highest-paid coaches in the NFL, on par with Andy Reid. Haslam is also willing to give Harbaugh significant roster control and personnel authority, something Harbaugh reportedly desires. Haslam emphasized the importance of the next few months in his end-of-season press conference. He said, "The next 120 days are crucial for the organization. We've got to find the right head coach. We've got to be efficient again in free agency. We have 10 draft picks, including 2 number ones. We have 4 picks in the top 3 rounds, and we've got to get really good players who are really good people again." That statement reveals Haslam's mindset. He's not thinking about protecting Shedeur Sanders' feelings. He's thinking about winning. And if landing John Harbaugh gives the Browns the best chance to win, Haslam will do it, regardless of what it means for Sanders. But here's the ethical dilemma. Shedeur Sanders is a 23-year-old kid whose entire professional football future hangs in the balance. He made a decision during the draft based on wanting an opportunity to play. He earned that opportunity through hard work and performance, and now, through no fault of his own, the coach he rejected is potentially coming to Cleveland with the power to end his starting career before it really began. Is that fair? Should Haslam factor Sanders' development into his decision, or should he ruthlessly pursue the best coach available regardless of the consequences for his young quarterback? There's also the business angle to consider. Sanders comes with baggage. He's the son of Deion Sanders, one of the most famous athletes in America. He has a massive social media following. He brings attention and scrutiny wherever he goes. Some teams during the draft reportedly felt Sanders deliberately tanked interviews with franchises he didn't want to play for. His personality rubbed some decision-makers the wrong way. If Harbaugh comes to Cleveland and decides Sanders isn't the answer, the Browns would need to figure out what to do with a 5th-round pick who still has trade value but comes with complications. Do you try to trade him? Do you keep him as a backup? Do you cut him and move on entirely? The awkwardness of this situation cannot be overstated. Imagine being Shedeur Sanders and having to sit in a team meeting led by John Harbaugh, the coach you specifically told the NFL you didn't want to play for. Imagine Harbaugh having to coach Sanders knowing that Sanders rejected him during the draft. How do you build trust in that relationship? How do you move forward productively when the foundation is built on rejection and awkwardness? According to sources, the Browns are not mandating to coaching candidates that they must start Sanders. That's significant. It means Haslam is prioritizing finding the best coach over protecting his young quarterback.
It also means Sanders is truly competing for his job, not just against other quarterbacks on the roster, but against the possibility of the Browns drafting or trading for someone new. Sanders has tried to stay positive publicly. He said he's confident in what he showed on the field. He's focusing on improving and getting better. But privately, he has to be worried. He has to be looking at this situation and wondering if his decision to reject Baltimore and choose Cleveland was a catastrophic mistake. The irony is almost too perfect. Sanders rejected Harbaugh to avoid sitting behind Lamar Jackson. Now Harbaugh might come to Cleveland and bench Sanders anyway, either for a draft pick or a veteran free agent. Sanders would end up in the exact situation he tried to avoid, except now it's even worse because it's happening with the coach he specifically didn't want to play for.
As of today, January 13, 2026, John Harbaugh is narrowing down his list of potential interviews. He's expected to meet with teams next week after the wildcard round of the playoffs. The Browns are one of several teams hoping to land him. The Giants, Titans, Dolphins, Falcons, and Raiders all have interest. Harbaugh will pick the situation that gives him the best chance to win another championship before he retires. The question is whether Cleveland can convince him that they're that situation, and if they do, what happens to Shedeur Sanders? Jimmy Haslam holds all the power in this scenario. He can choose to protect his young quarterback by hiring a different coach who will commit to developing Sanders. Or he can swing for the fences, land John Harbaugh, and let the chips fall where they may for Shedeur. One thing is certain. Haslam's decision will define the next era of Cleveland Browns football. If he hires Harbaugh and Sanders gets benched or traded, Haslam will be criticized for mishandling a young player. If he passes on Harbaugh to protect Sanders and the team continues to lose, Haslam will be crucified for prioritizing the feelings of a fifth-round pick over winning. There's no easy answer. There's no clean solution. This is the NFL. Decisions are ruthless, loyalty is fleeting, and Jimmy Haslam is about to make a choice that will impact multiple lives and careers. For Shedeur Sanders, all he can do is wait. Wait to see if the coach he rejected is coming to Cleveland. Wait to see if his opportunity to be an NFL starting quarterback is about to disappear. Wait to see if Jimmy Haslam values his future or values John Harbaugh more. This is the most explosive coaching search storyline in the NFL right now, and nobody knows how it's going to end. The future of Shedeur Sanders and the Cleveland Browns hangs in the balance as owner Jimmy Haslam navigates one of the most complicated coaching searches in recent NFL history. This information is based on reports from ESPN, NFL Network, Cleveland.com, The Athletic, Sports Illustrated, and multiple sources close to the Browns organization. As John Harbaugh begins his interview process next week, the entire football world will be watching to see where he lands and what it means for Shedeur Sanders' career. This is a developing story with massive implications for multiple franchises.